Next, I'd like to invite Sue. Where's Sue? Sue Kwon, which is a great friend, also one of an awesome speaker from last year. And Sue actually used to be with CBS 5, and now she's actually with Gap. I'm going to have her tell you all about it, but I'm going to have Sue come on up on stage and introduce the rest of our panelists. How are you?
Hi. In the audience, who is doing a business that's related to products? Tangible products. Okay, now services, software. Okay, and how many people here have had any kind of touch with media, either getting coverage? How many people have tried to? Okay, so what we've done is we have a panel of people from traditional media, radio, TV, myself, and blog and new media. And the idea is to give you guys a sense of the landscape of all the different places where you can get coverage, how you get that coverage, and how you will get attention. Because it's not always the best ideas in the room that get that coverage. There's a real trick to getting coverage and a real trick to pitching your companies in a correct way. When I was a reporter at CBS, just as of 3 months ago, every day I'd get 75 pitches a day in my email. And they look like product pitches, sales type things. I just deleted them all. You have to tell me a story within the first 2 sentences in order to get my attention. And that story has to be relevant to what I'm thinking and relevant to an audience. So let's go down the row. And if you each will tell us, the audience, who your reach is and what you cover. And that'll give everyone a sense of, give a good foundation for this. Okay,
My name is Mikal Belicove, and I am a columnist and contributing writer for Entrepreneur Magazine. We have around 600,000 paid subscribers and a pass-around rate of over 3 million. Online, we get 93 million views per month. We cover anything and everything that an entrepreneur needs or a business owner needs to do their job better. And I cover social media, online marketing, market positioning, public relations, website development, website usability, and emerging companies within any of those spaces.
Question for you guys is a raise of hands. If you could get one really great complimentary piece in a traditional forum, whether it be a New York Times, radio, local TV, or TechCrunch, Mashable, a blog, excuse me, let me put also Entrepreneur Magazine in the traditional category, even though you have a lot more offerings online. Who would raise their hand to say, I'd rather have traditional media, just because? Who sees more value in the blogs, the online, the more issue-centric, and what about the rest? Okay. And I think that's why the title of this was Traditional Media, Is It Even Worth It? And so people are like, why is she not in CBS anymore? And so we're going to lay it out. The fact of the matter is the whole media landscape has just been shaken up, in part because of other content, but also just because of the way the business model was structured. It's just going through a regrouping. But that said, there's still a lot of opportunity to get your story out there in using traditional media, but at the same time, you have to understand that pitching of traditional media is going to be different than pitching of a Mashable or Udemy or, a magazine that has the different platforms, correct? So can we go down the line and just say, when you get pitched, what is the thing that perks your ears and makes it relevant to what your particular offering is? Why don't we start with you, Mike?
Yeah, so I'll start. One thing I want to say is that I take a bit of a different view. The notion of traditional media being dead or that there is traditional media, it's almost like saying there's good weather and there's bad weather. All there is weather. And as a journalist, I'm personally just a little bit tired of this storyline that gets passed around about traditional media is no longer valuable. And so it pains me when I see people not raising their hands to say that they wouldn't want to be covered by a magazine. Media is media. Almost every single magazine nowadays has a dynamic online component. And so I don't believe that traditional media is dead. I believe that media is always evolving. And we can go back over time, and I won't attempt to give anyone a history lesson here, but media has evolved since media has been around, and it's going to continue to evolve. And if we continue to set up this dynamic that there's traditional media and there's new media and there's online media, you're talking about the wrong thing. The right thing to be talking about is what you just asked. How do you get my attention? How do you get the attention of other people that are here? And it's no different than getting the attention of a large company like the Titans that were talking this morning. You need to find out what's on my roadmap. You need to understand my beat, what I cover, what I'm interested in, and what my readers need to know in order to do their jobs better. For me, it's not about you. It's not about the personalities behind companies, the way that I write. It's about the technology, and it's about how it helps my readers do their job better. So as a journalist, for myself, I don't do profiles. I definitely quote people, but I'm more interested in helping my readers build their businesses, build their companies, understand best practices, not make the same mistakes that other people have made.
What do you see as traditional media? I know we're not going to section them off, but what is different in terms of what you offer that the TechCrunch or blogs of the world do not or cannot offer?
From entrepreneurs' perspective?
Yes, from just your coverage and what you're able to write or produce for online.
I'm a different person than Ben. I'm different than these guys. I have a different point of view. I started an internet company in 1997. I sold it in 2002 successfully. I bring that background to what I write. I don't know what their backgrounds are. I don't know if they have similar experiences. Their experiences are just as valuable as mine, but first and foremost, I'm a journalist, and so I have a certain level of integrity just as they do.
Okay, but you just said something, journalist. Do you guys consider yourself journalists or bloggers? There is a difference because, and I do both, so I'm not defensive on either one. But with blogs, they can be opinion, where there is no checks or balance or managing editor saying get the other side. Blogs can be opinion. Oftentimes, it depends on what the venue is. It can offer more, it can offer less. Bloggers are able, in many cases, to take products and test them and not pay for them.
I actually don't do much of the dichotomy between blogger and journalist. I'm an editor person, and I consider myself a journalist, I guess. But I feel like in a lot of ways they're all the same. There's definitely a difference between like writing small, like mom writing about just like her own little blog versus like, Mashable is a news organization. We do journalism. We write about news stories, and it's the same kind of thing. I agree completely with him that if you're going to think about all the media as different sections and dichotomies, you're doing it wrong. This is all about reach, and you want maximum reach and maximum potential. And the best way to do that is to understand the individual that you're pitching and understand what he or she is interested in, what he or she wants, what that publication does with startup coverage or other types of coverage.
Okay, and Jason, I would love it if you would talk about radio and the other platforms, just what's happening in the industry such that one story can get play in so many different places and then around the country.
Well, I mean, to echo Michael, I agree. I don't think of this as a division between traditional and new media. All the platforms are combining to one degree or another.
Great point. How many people here are in cloud? Anything cloud? Okay, how about green tech? Education related? Okay, so whenever you have themes or stories or trends out there that may not impact you directly in terms of you getting coverage for your company or your service, you can be that expert in that space, and then under your name or in print would be your CG or your title and your company name. And that's, all of us are content providers at the end of the day. And I think Michael set this up so well. Even 3 years ago when I did these panels, it was really us against them kind of thing. It was really feeling like, I always felt like I was defending myself for being in traditional media. But things have really changed. It's really, as you put, is more across platforms.
I mean, just as evidence of that, how many people here consider CNN to be traditional media? Well, you're just as likely to find an article from Ben's organization on the homepage of CNN.com in the number 1, 2, or 3 slot under headlines as you are an article about anything else. It's just media.
It's a great point. And so that leading into the thought that there's so much content that needs to be provided, you can be a content provider by being an expert, and you can also get the one-offs on, you know, the dream story about what your company does and how great it is. So think of yourself as, what do I have to say that's relevant to the discussion, to the water cooler talk, or to something that might be happening even with a competitor. And when you think of your story in that broader range, there's more opportunity for you to parachute in on any given day to get that coverage. What I'm curious too now about is partnerships. There are more partnerships happening. And one of the simple partnerships, I always read Mashable and TechCrunch if I'm actually doing my beat checks. Those are my beat checks. I want to see what's being talked about in the weeds of these different areas, and if it's something that's relevant to a local TV audience, to a bigger audience, then I'll expand on that. Now, we're not taking the information, but it is part of that whole kind of, in the past, we would read the paper, the newspaper, and get our ideas for TV. So it's not, they're all linked. So the strategy is not, I want to get in the New York Times or I want to get in a TechCrunch. It's how do I tell my stories in all of these different places and understand that it's a domino. It can be an organic thing that grows. Do you guys have any stories about how perhaps any given story of yours kind of grew and ended up on other places or in other forms or maybe triggered conversation in other ways?
I can speak to that maybe from a little bit of a different perspective. In terms of tips, tricks, strategies, and warnings when you're pitching me, and I don't know if you guys feel the same way or not, but when you're pitching me on either a client of yours or your company, to tell me about all the other places that you've received coverage or all the other rewards that you've won doesn't really turn me on. I don't want to just be serving up sloppy seconds. I want to cover something that's new, something that's completely unique, that is going to help my readers run their businesses better. And so it's not a selling point to me to tell me that this story was just covered by Mashable or it was just covered by the New York Times or by anybody else. I'm interested in something that's truly unique. And 9 out of 10 times, I'm going out and finding that story myself. But if you're pitching me, and these guys may want to talk to this as well, it's probably important to recognize that you want to treat me as an individual. Treat my property as something unique and not just like everything else, because I'm not impressed by the fact that you receive coverage elsewhere.
But do you guys have any other thoughts on like what would make your job easier or better? What are some of the trends you're looking to cover that you hope will land in that bucket of story ideas?
Don't try to spin me, because I've been in your shoes before and I've tried to do it and I sniff right through it. So when you try to tell me your story, you have to understand that I'm not just a regurgitator. I'm going to go out and I'm going to dig around and I'm going to look around. I'm going to interview your competitors. I'm going to try to understand your space. Obviously not as well as you do because I don't have that kind of time. But transparency and authenticity, total buzzwords. But nowadays you're dealing with journalists, if that's what we want to call ourselves, that are just as smart as you. And we're going to figure out what the story is.
Second thing is she had a question.
Yes. Mary.
Okay, so we get, I think, that you just write an email very quickly, right? Okay, so who do you want to hear from, the founder or their PR?
The founder.
All the way up.
The founder.
As far up as you can go.
Not an underpaid PR person who doesn't know what the product is. That's really annoying. Now we have to wrap. Oh, go ahead,
Yeah,
Michael. You have last.
For me, yeah, I'd love to hear from a founder. That's great. But it's about the quality of the information. I don't care if it's the founder or a PR firm. As long as they understand my roadmap, what I cover, and why what they're pitching is important to me, doesn't matter to me.
Yeah, because I find it hard to believe that TechCrunch doesn't deal with PR agencies. Because I know they do.
I definitely agree with him that it's more what the content of the email is than it is who's saying it, but who's saying it is also very high on that list. And I will tell you that my experiences with PR firms to date have largely been negative and not positive.
Unfortunately, we've run out of time, but real quick as we say goodbye, can everyone just say how to get in touch with you when you do pitch, and then we'll close it out.
kcbs.com. Easy enough right there.
Gagan at crunchgear.com.
Jump out of an airplane with, I'm trying to think of the craziest thing. Ben at Mashable, but news at Mashable is always better.
News at Mashable.
News at Mashable.
And Michael?
Michael, Mikal, at Belicove, BELICOVE.com.
Excellent. And for those of you who are coming to the media lunch, we'll be there too. Okay, thank you.